When we loaded up the elevator with all the crates, and after everyone had searched through the scav den for extra loot, all the boys now had a new weapon of some sort. Ichi even claiming the DB2 Satara. I was tempted to claim it myself. I had enough equipment, I didn't really need it. Plus Ichi looked so happy when he pulled it out from underneath a table. We were ready to go. I had taken a few minutes with Omaida's help to breach the scav's computer security as well. The other netrunner had looked pretty irritated with my assistance in pulling the data, but after a quick discussion, he was going to sell the data off to another netrunner he knew who would be interested, as long as any data on other scav locations went to me. Sure, I could have pulled it as well, and I likely would have just sold it to Wakako, but Omaida was Ichi's netrunner. If I was going to keep using Ichi's crew, I needed to keep them happy. Although potentially the only reason Omaida had agreed was because of the looks the crew had given me when they came across the Borg's body. It was back to that fearful side glances. I used a "Boya guys. Stop acting like it's weird. Anyone can kill a borged out scav with a hand cannon." We took the elevator down and finally I got to see what the crew had gathered up. Omaida had his van, which ended up being mostly useless as the boy had the back filled with scrap already, which seemed to piss him off when he realized he wouldn't be able to take a crate. Malcolm had a car, an old beat-up Thornton Galena, which was basically a little hatchback. With the back seats down, and a lot of effort, Malcolm with Omaida's help got a crate in the back. But Ichi was reliable. He had actually done as asked. A veal for Columbus. It was basically a modern moving van, and the back was empty. I called in a favor with one of Shobo-sama's lieutenants. I did a job for him that saved his hide a few months back. I asked him for something I could move a lot of stuff around with, and he gave me the key shard for this. Just don't scratch the paint, or ding it up, okay? He muttered to everyone. Sure, Ichi. We will be careful. Oh look, it even has a little ramp. That's useful. I called out, showing everyone my discovery, and with that we were able to load up the 5 crates of chrome into the cars. I think that's everything, Hiromi called out, wiping her brow. Despite the fact she hadn't really done anything but supervise the loading. Oh, 1 second. There is something I can't forget, I called out as I headed back up the elevator. A minute later, with a bit of effort, I came back down, struggling to hold my new baby with one arm. Motoko, Ichi sighed, looking at me as I struggled to carry my new HMG to the van. She is very important, Ichi, I tell him firmly as he sighs and helps me load her up. Then we all climbed in, and realized we had no idea where to go. Who buys a bunch of chrome? I asked Hiromi and Ichi from the back seat of his truck as they clambered in. Ripperdocs. We could head back to the Hog Club as well. I bet Shobo-sama would buy the chrome off you. Or a fixer. But make sure to call them first. Never a good idea to drop off a job in a fixer's lap without asking first, Ichi replied, his experience on the streets revealing themselves. Ripperdocs. Actually, that gives me an idea, and a chance to meet someone I wanted to have a future relationship with. I told Ichi and pulled up my map system. I ended up unable to find directions to where I wanted to go, but I did find the next best thing. Sending you the deets, Ichi. Misty's Esoterica? He asked as I sent him the text. Not exactly. It's the ripperdoc behind the shop that I am interested in, I tell him with a small smile. Trust me. I was forced to add at the confused and unsure look I was getting. All right. Your gig. You're the boss, he said with a shrug, and I could see his eyes flash gold as he must have called Omaida and Malcolm to follow him. While it happened, I went ahead and called the NCPD line and gave them the information about the scav den cleared out and the bodies, along with the victims still alive but drugged. It was really strange because the bored-sounding woman on the line took all the information without showing any actual enthusiasm and then thanked me for the information. I don't think she actually meant that. Still, I turned my attention back to what lay at my feet. I had so many plans for this baby. This is it? Ichi asked as we parked, right in front of Misty's Esoterica. Yeah. Have everyone sit tight. I need to go around the back and talk to the Ripper. Keep an eye on the trucks. I shouldn't take too long, I asked Ichi, and he nodded. Hiromi, of course, was already out of the truck waiting for me. I stepped out and looked at the entrance to Misty's Esoterica with smile. Like walking into a dream. It looked the same. Hello? A quiet voice called out as a woman straight from Blade Runner walked around the corner from the back of her shop. Oh, I was right, I did hear someone. Welcome to my esoterica. How can I help you today? She asked, looking Hiromi and I over as I smiled at her gently. Sorry, I actually have other business. Is Dr. Vector in? I asked and Misty almost pouted for a second. He is. Yours isn't a face I know. She mentioned as she blinked slowly at me. No. This is my first time. I'm a new client, I guess you could say. Motoko. Misty, as you might have guessed. Alright, come on, I'll show you the way. She offered with a smile as she guided us through the back and then into an alley. I could see Hiromi starting to frown a bit, but I knew that Victor was one of the best ripperdocs in the city. Definitely the best in this area at least. More importantly, he wasn't the type to rip out a kid's spine without anesthesia and chip them with a Sandovistan only to not give them the meds they would need. No, Vic was honorable. In a city almost completely devoid of it. There was a reason that I had instantly thought of him. Misty guided us to a set of stairs leading downward lit by a small green light, and I could feel Hiromi tensing up as she drew close to me. Door opening showed just a dark space with some junk on the floor. The fact she had her sword on her and was gripping it told me she was feeling particularly uncomfortable being led into a dark hole. I just smiled because I was completely comfortable. We hit the bottom of the stairs and Misty called out. Vic? You got a new client, she said as she looked through the protective door blocking the way. Is that so? A voice called out and the gate opened as Misty waved us in. Inside was a small ripperdoc office. It wasn't perfectly clean and tidy, but there was a sense at least that it wasn't a back alley ripper, despite Victor being just that. The man was sitting at a desk as we walked in. Hiromi was looking around like she expected an ambush. Victor, though, seeing the two of us, smiled gently and rose up. Victor. Nice to meet you. He offered, offering a hand even if it was covered in ripper mods. I took it casually to make sure I wasn't pricked. Motoko Kusanagi, and this is my chum Hiromi. Nice to meet you, Dr. Vector. Oh please, call me Vic, or Victor, if you must. Vic then, I agreed, easily earning a smile. Even Hiromi was calming down. Now how can I help you? Need something installed, or just a checkup? Neither, both? It's complicated. I have a business proposition for you. I'm hoping you'll be willing to help me out. I heard good things about you, so I am hoping the rumor was true. The man blinked a bit behind his glasses. Well, I doubt I have too many rumors about me anymore. I keep pretty quiet. It was about how you were a good guy. Don't rip people off, or install hacked Chrome. I tell him, which for a moment he actually seems a little proud of that. Well, I try to live up to that. What can I help you with? Right. Let me be blunt then. I'm a merc, and I just cleared a scav den. I heard Misty do a little gasp beside us as she had settled onto the table to watch our meeting take place. Vic, though, I watched as his eyebrows snapped together. I have 5 crates of Chrome. All sorts of stuff. From bargain bin junk, to, well, I don't know. I'm not really a Chrome merchant. I say, rubbing the back of my head a bit. I'll continue to be blunt. Most of it is stuff I won't get much from. Even if I tried to find people that would pay in eddies, most of the Chrome isn't great. It's why I came to you. I want to trust you. To believe your rumors, that you are a good guy, so here is the deal. I give you the crates. All of them. Everything in there except maybe some good stuff if me or my chums can use it. You can do whatever you want with it. Help people that need it. Sell it if that's what you want. But in exchange, I could use a ripper I can actually trust. And maybe some advice on if any of the pieces are worth chipping in. I finished talking and let the room take in what I had just said. I could feel Hiromi tensing up next to me, probably wondering what the hell drug I was on. Giving stuff away in Night City? To someone that isn't even your chum? Vic was looking me over with a strong stare. The boxer that he used to be seemed to be looking me over, trying to figure out the angle of my punch. There wasn't one though. I just trusted Vic, and considering what he was like in the game, if I gave him a bunch of cheap Chrome, I expected a lot of people struggling without, or with failing limbs might find cheap to free chances to get new limbs soon. At least that was the hope. A guy willing to ignore a 20k debt from a merc. That was the sort of kindness you didn't see in Night City often. I wanted it for myself. That sounded kinda selfish, but it was true. If I could become someone Vic likes, then I could have a really good relationship with one of the best. Didn't wake up today expecting something like this. Alright. You want to know what kind of chrome you have, and if there is anything worth anything? Let's take a look. Great. The trucks are outside Misty's. What's the best way to bring the crates down? Let's back them up to the gate. I can open it up. Try to keep some eyes off, he chuckled as he rose up and actually sort of shooed us out of his clinic. I could hear Misty whispering something, and Vic chuckling a bit as he patted the girl on her shoulder. We all walked up and out. Hiromi sending me looks the whole time, but I threw her a simple thumbs up which made her roll her eyes at me before huffing a bit. We pulled the boys into helping, and 10 minutes later we had all 5 crates lined up against the inside of Vic's clinic. Misty was still hanging around as well, and now the boys were here, looking around the place as Vic popped the lid on the first crate. I could hear his soft intake of breath as he looked over the many limbs laying in the crate. Yeah. Fuck scavs, I said simply from beside him. There were at least 20 pairs of limbs in this crate alone. That's 20 people dead. No, it was more. Because not all the limbs were paired. Yeah. Vic grumbled a bit with a hint of a growl in his throat before he sighed and rubbed his eyes a bit. You sure about this, kid? This is a lot of chrome, even with its origins. It's because of its origins that I brought it to you. Might be able to help some people at least. Maybe. Most of this is mid-range stuff, he whispered looking through the pile. Got a few high-end pieces. Nothing I can see that is combat rated, but... He pulled out an arm that instead of the chrome lines, had a black lacquer. This an Arasaka piece. The sort of thing they hand out to low-level corporate. It's quality work. But not combat rated? No, it's a showpiece. Lots of bells and whistles, but no good if you want to hit someone with it. He hummed, taking a moment to settle on the right word. Is there anything in there that would be useful to a merc? Not this crate. But there is more than enough chrome in here to buy something high-end. I can't pay for all this. You sure you don't want to sell it to someone else? I'm sure. I answered simply, which did cause the little huddle around Hiromi as the crew were obviously arguing about the lack of a payday. Idiots. Setting up a connection to a really good ripperdoc, one that uses anesthesia when operating and knows what he is doing. Worth more than a few eddies. Plus Vic was cool. He started going through the crates, and there weren't any combat limbs. There was a few things that caught the boys' ears. Smart link system here. Solid 1-2. Militech. He called out, pulling out the... Well, it was plastic bag with the palm of a hand inside it. Thankfully there wasn't any meat attached. I shivered. Fucking scavs. Victor just kept going through cataloging what we had brought him. The fact that he had found something everyone could use had the whole crew breaking away from their complaining huddle to come see. Like a pile of puppies when food is put out. I smirked a little at the thought. In the end, there wasn't much we could end up using. My hopes for the optics. Yeah, let's go with that. Saying eyes makes it a little too much. The optics ended up being about on par with the stuff I already had. Sorry. Vic offered in the end, looking actually apologetic. Scavs don't tend to go for people who can fight back. They usually scan their target, make sure they are unarmed. Someone with combat-rated cyberware, or mantis blades or something they won't even approach. Yeah, that's why I figured you would get more use out of it than I would. I told him. Yeah. Listen. I can't take all of this, Vic said. You're a bunch of kids. Taking on scavs. You probably risked your lives. I don't have the cash to come close to all of this chrome. Your skills as a ripper are worth more than some eddies. I tell him with a shrug. If you feel really bad. I think one of the boys wants that smart link. Maybe give us a discount on the chip, and we call it square. Hey, you're a weird one. Motoko, wasn't it? He asked, looking me over for a moment as if he was memorizing my face. That's right. All right. Considering how much stock you just dropped off in my lap, I don't mind chipping that in for free, but I can't accept all of this for nothing either. His eyes went blue and a moment later I had a deposit. That's too much. I couldn't help but argue instantly, only to get laughed at by the doc. I'm basically scamming you, kid, even with that. Take it. He refused, adjusting his glasses as he grabbed the smart link. Hand. Let me do a few scans on this, make sure it doesn't have any malware or anything, and whoever wants it? Me. Malcolm called out instantly, earning looks from the rest of the crew. Motoko. Hiromi whined to me, but I put up both hands. Don't look at me. Decide amongst yourselves who gets it. Oh, also, here is the pay for the job. I tell them as my eyes turn blue. Vic had dropped 10 grand on my lap. So I passed 2 grand to everyone. I was now 2 grand richer. You should get it, Motoko, Ichi said even as Malcolm looked like a kicked puppy. No thanks. I tell them with a shrug. I don't use smart weapons. So it isn't really necessary to me, and there is some work I was thinking about doing on my arms first anyways. So might as well wait. Despite Hiromi looking like she wanted to argue with me, the crew huddled back together, and after a minute there was a general grudging agreement. Malcolm was pushed towards the dock. All right. Got my patient then. Hop on up. Let's get you chipped. I smiled at the eager look on Malcolm's face as we all settled in. The actual chrome was a bit of a bust, but Vic was good people. Plus I bet if I asked him to keep an eye out for some chrome he would be able to help out. We all waited around as Malcolm got his first piece of real chrome. Not that it really would do much for him, I mean he had optics, everyone did. But they weren't combat optics. Regardless, after Vic finished chipping Malcolm, and gave him some drugs to take to help adjust to the new hand, we all left after I got Vic's number and he mine. I still can't believe we had all that chrome, and you just gave it away. Surprisingly, Ichi had started complaining to me as soon as we hopped into his truck. I didn't give it away. I paid a ripperdoc a bunch of chrome to have a solid rep with him. If I ever drag myself into his shop bleeding from a few holes, he will patch me up. Rippers do that anyways, Ichi argued. Yeah, I agree with Ichi on this one, Motoko. I don't get it, Hiromi argued, and I sighed. Just trust me. Having Vic on our side is going to pay dividends. He's good people. That should reassure them. It did not reassure them. Good people. Motoko. Hiromi whined, putting her head in her hands. Why did we let her decide anything? She still has amnesia brain. And probably worse since she attacked a scavden solo. It was her gig. Ichi replied, sounding strained just to say it. Not happy about how it went, but we also didn't put in any risk. I've been paid less for moving crates before. Yeah, but this could have been a big break. Hiromi whined, looking back at me. I'm removing your gig choosing privileges. You can't. I argue back, rolling my eyes at her. I'll tell June what you did. I would tell June what I did, if I ever see him. I told her. It sounded a little petulant even to my ears. That quieted the argument for a minute. Sorry, Motoko. I know June has been difficult. Yeah, I agree before sighing. I was quiet on the rest of the way back. Ichi pulling up in front of the apartment, which I was grateful for. My arm still hurt. I ignored the looks I was getting as I pulled my new baby out of the truck. The HMG really was a monster. I could barely get it around with only one good arm. I waved off Hiromi's help as I hefted the HMG in my arms and hauled it into the apartment, getting plenty of looks as I stepped into the elevator. An HMG, 2K eddies, a pile of other weapons that I had stuffed in a bag I found, and a relationship with Victor. All for the low price of murdering a group of people and almost dying a few times. I walked inside. Once again June wasn't home. I dropped the HMG on the living room table, kinda liking how it looked sitting there. Then I flopped on the couch. My arm still hurt. I laid down and went to sleep. Wait. Fuck. I cursed as I jumped back to my feet. Fuck. I cursed myself. I was a moron. I forgot to check if they had any cars parked in the garage. I could have stolen a new ride. Fuck. I was practically humming when I went for my job the next day. I had some more eddies in my pocket. I had leveled up, and had a stat and skill point I needed to figure out, and my arm didn't hurt anymore. I definitely didn't make any massive blunders like not searching for new wheels. Nope. That was some other Motoko. Definitely. Knocking over the scavden was in every respect a good thing. My morals hiding in the corner after I beat them like a red-headed stepchild aside. Scavs were monsters. So even that didn't bother me too much. Walk through a scavden and see the dead, ripped-apart bodies of the people inside, and you won't have much difficulties committing murder as well. Now I just needed to find more scavs. I jogged down the block as I plotted. I had unfortunately run through my knowledge of scav locations. I considered going to Wakako to ask if she had any info, but it was probably best if I relax and let myself decompress. I did just murder a lot of people. It was probably bad for my mental health to instantly look for more people to kill. So instead I jogged around the block, going slow on my way to the gym. Every device I walked past I tried quick hacking with ping. Time to train. Even if I couldn't level quick hacking itself yet, I still needed to grind intelligence. Plus after an hour of slowly making my way to the gym, I would have some time to hammer at a sandbag. Back at home after a shower. I still had a smile on my face because of my level up at the gym. Street Brawler skill level up. Level 4 felt great. Combined with grapple, I felt actually pretty confident in a brawl. I mean, not against a gorilla Armsborg or something, but if a scav grabbed me, I think I'll survive. When I settled onto the couch I looked first at my baby, the HMG, and then at the radio. Intelligence. I reminded myself. As fun as playing with the HMG would be, I really needed to get to the point where I could actually do some net running stuff. Intelligence. I got XP for it whenever I trained breach or quick hack, which was the most consistent method I had figured out, but it was slow. I needed to raise net running. I could have handled the fight with the Borg a lot easier if I could hack his optics, or just shut his cyberware down. So I headed out into the city, pinging and breaching every vending machine I could find again. That night I gained 4 intelligence XP alerts. But not a level. It was just on the edge of being too mindless for me to enjoy the grind. But every time I got the alert it made me feel better. Plus, since I was literally breaking into every vending machine I walked past, I did get myself some treats from time to time. Over the next 2 days I really didn't do much more than grind. I had even taken to trying to sneak around while breaching, training myself on how best to move while hacking to keep myself out of sight. I hadn't earned anything for ninjutsu yet, but considering I was pretty visibly walking down the street and pretending to sneak around, I just did my best to pretend no one could see me acting like a massive dork. It even let me work some athletics training in, as I was jogging around the city. But grinding can't go on forever. I was mid-breach on a vending machine when it happened. I got a text. "Wakako, come to my parlor. We need to talk." That was it. Not a woman of many words, Wakako. I shrugged, finished up my breach and rose up from where I had been crouching behind a trash can. Ignored the old guy next to me that was fencing stolen clothes by the looks of it, pretended he didn't exist as I walked casually down the sidewalk. I was pretty far from home, would have to take a train on the way back. But I wondered what Wakako wanted. A short train ride back to my area. I walked down Jig Jig Street, bypassed the dolls, and ignored the lecherous looks from the gongs, walked into Wakako's parlor. "Good, you're here. Come in, stop wasting time," Wakako called out before I could even walk up to her receptionist. Shrugging, I passed through Wakako's bead door. To my surprise though, Wakako wasn't alone. A man was lounging in the chair in front of Wakako, looking bored. Although as he looked over his shoulder his eyes shot up. "You're kidding. She's a kid." "I am not," Wakako said bluntly. "You wanted a gun for hire. Here she is." Wakako answered as she pointed a well-manicured finger at me. "Meet Motoko Kusanagi. 14. 3 days ago she raided a scav den. Alone. I verified this myself. No footage unfortunately, but 11 scavs were recovered from the site. 12. I couldn't help but admit after Wakako finished. She looked at me suddenly, eyes hard. Stashed one in a fridge. They probably just thought he was a victim." Wakako nodded in acceptance of my words and turned back to the man. The man hummed a little but shook his head. "That's great, impressive and all. I don't work with kids," he answered flatly, pointing at me. "I don't even know what is going on." I interrupted again, looking to Wakako. "Can I get brought in on the sitch? This is Scorpion, a nomad. Due to some circumstances he came to me for help on a gig," Wakako said, simply waving at me. "You don't have time to overly argue about what help you can get. You wanted someone that could watch your back for the eddies you offered. Out of my pool of talent few would even hear you out at the price you offer. The girl has proven herself that I am recommending her for your job. Here is my offer. Take it or leave it." "What's the gig?" I interrupt again. Before he hems and haws about it, maybe I should find out if I'm even willing to take it? I turn to look at the man. No offense, none taken. He grumbled, looking to Wakako, and she once again pointed to me. Fine. Here are the deets. I got a deal going on. Gotta keep it. Low. The family wouldn't like it. Basically got a Rathan Shiv that owes me a favor. Saved his life a year back. Despite all the bad blood. He used to be an Aldekaldos. Knew him as a kid. Little snot-nosed brat. The man sighed, rubbing at his bald head. I get it. I prompted, and the man got himself back together. Yeah, well, I saved his ass during a storm. We talked some shit. He won't be welcome back, but he got in contact with me a week ago. Said the Raf and found something preem. Something I would very much like. Now it's not that I trust him. I don't, but I don't think he is trying to ambush me either. He has something I want. I have some eddies and, well, family stuff. Anyway, I'll need someone to watch my back. Just in case. We are going to Rafan territory after all. So since you can't bring the Aldekaldos into it, considering you came to Wakako to hire a gun. I confirmed. About sums it up. What's the pay? Not really sure it matters. You need someone you can trust at your back in a potential firefight. I might be a street kid, but I'm a professional. I'll fight to get us both out of there if something goes bad. I answered simply. That of course depends on the pay. I add in at the end with a shrug. 2 though. He offered, but I sensed it immediately. We were haggling. 3. You are putting me in the path of the Raven. I added. The fucking scav nomads. Or better, they were crazy Mad Max villains traveling the dusty roads and thieving, murdering and raping their way through the desert. 2. Good chance it will just be a long quiet drive and a nice paycheck. 2. And I'll not ask you for ammo pay. I countered. He was quiet for a minute before he sighed. 2. Agreeing to bring me along. Excellent. Now both of you. Get out. Wakako ordered with the irritation only an old woman can give when forced to stay around younger people. Thanks. Scorpion offered with a roll of his eyes at her, but his eyes went blue a moment later and Wakako nodded. Seemed she got her payment. I followed Scorpion out of the parlor before he turned on me. Listen. It's against my better judgment to bring you on. I don't. The nomads don't bring kids into dangerous situations like this. I've gone solo into a scav den. It's not my first gig. Right. Alright, listen, it's already late, and I'm not looking to have to camp out in the desert. So we will head out tomorrow morning. Sounds good? Yeah, it sounds fine. We flashed each other our contact information. A weird feeling that I was starting to get used to. Perfect. He grumbled as he headed out into the darkness of Jig Jig Street. Rafine ha. Fucking scavs, I whispered, thinking about this gig. The solo's guide said I should determine what level of violence to bring to a table for every gig. And prepare to kill if necessary. Yeah, I think I was ready to kill in this case. I went home and sent June a text asking if he would be home tonight. I never did get a response. The next morning Scorpion and I confirmed after a quick back and forth how our meetup was gonna go. He was not pleased that I didn't have a ride, and he had to come pick me up. Nomads. Practically married to their rides and expect everyone else to be too. Of course I got to see his irritation at waiting out on the sidewalk for me disappear into a sort of awed shock. Because I was bringing my new baby. With 2 arms it wasn't too bad to walk out of the apartment, much to the fearful gaze of all the people I walked past as I carried my HMG at my side. SMG around my chest, all fully loaded and ready for war. Honestly, I think cold blood was active, because I felt completely calm as I walked around Scorpion's cute little hatchback car. It was a Thornton Galena according to the information that I had picked up from living in the city, but it was heavily modified. Obviously. Damn. Scorpion muttered, looking me over, as I settled my baby in the back seat. Before pulling the seat back in place. I like to be prepared. Just be happy you aren't paying for ammo. I told him as I settled into the seat. It was then I noticed. He had his jacket hood up. I shrugged. If he liked driving around with a hood over his head, I wasn't going to comment. All right then. He uttered, actually sounding a little impressed. Well, get comfortable. It'll be about 4 hours for us to hit the meeting site. and it might be a while before he shows up. So I hope you ate." I sighed at his words and gave him an apologetic smile. We stopped at a diner before leaving the city limits. Other than needling each other about our choice in music stations, it was a quiet drive. Scorpion was obviously used to driving alone, so I kept that in mind. Besides, even if this was the easy part, I was on a job. I kept my eyes out on the world around us and myself prepared for a battle. I had thought keeping focused for so long would be difficult, or draining, but it wasn't. I simply felt that coolness in my mind that made it so easy to stay focused and alert. I had a feeling I wouldn't be able to stay cool forever. Yet. But it would last more than long enough for this gig. I would relax more on the way back. Eventually, a few hours into the drive as we drove through long desert roads, Scorpion broke the silence. "So what made you into a merc? Not a normal job for a kid your age." "A couple things, I guess, but really it just felt right. I have some skill, and I wanted to do something with it," I offered with a shrug. "Better than sitting around doing nothing, I guess." "Crazy. Mercs die, you know." "Everyone dies," I countered, looking over to him. "I don't go out to die, but I know it can happen." Honestly, I was more afraid of killing someone else than dying myself at first, or having someone I care about die. So that's what drives me. If I can get better, get good equipment, get good cyberware, I'm more likely to be able to save my friends and family when something goes wrong. "You sound like a nomad," he offered with a chuckle. "Nah. I like putting my feet up in my air-conditioned apartment too much for that." "Low blow about the AC," he said quietly a moment later, and I couldn't help but chuckle. I guess hanging out in the California desert every day could get a bit warm sometimes. "Sorry." "Nah, it's alright," he chuckled, and we fell back into listening to the radio as we drove through the dust. Scorpion, Driss Miriana. "Alright. I called Connor, should show up in about an hour. He isn't happy about how late I am, but..." Scorpion shrugged. It didn't matter. Connor would get over it. She gave a single nod after hearing him before continuing her walk around. Scorpion had to admit, the girl was professional. They had stopped off at a pretty common halfway house, a place to hide out in a storm if necessary. She had immediately cleared it, and then began walking a perimeter, checking over the area. Scorpion had to admit, it was nice to know she was at least reliable. Then again, he wouldn't really know how reliable she truly was until the bullets started flying. No, shook his head, throwing away the thought. If the bullets started flying, he trusted Connor not to betray him here. Not when he was also carrying letters and pictures from home along with his eddies. It would be the first pictures Connor would see of his niece. The girl his merc, which still embarrassed him to have actually brought along, was doing a solid job of looking around. She moved. She moved like she had military experience. He would know. The Unification War had left its marks on many of the Aldecados, himself included. He still sometimes woke up in the middle of the night reaching for the controls of his tank. It would usually take a few minutes of holding onto the steering wheel of his gecko before he could relax. But this girl was way too young to have been in the war. What did Wakako say? 14? She would have been 9 then. Far too young for even the Corps to draft her. Although there were 100 other options that could cause her to move like a trained soldier. Scorpion decided to push it out of his mind. Wakako had recommended her, and he hired her. He settled onto the hood of his gecko to wait, watching as the girl finished her perimeter check before she actually climbed up the side of the warehouse, settling in next to a piece of the warehouse's AC unit that caused her to practically disappear from view. Damn. He shrugged it off and waited. Time ticked down as he simply enjoyed the peace of the desert. Unfortunately, as always, things can't go easy. Before he saw Connor, he saw the storm. "Hey. Storm is coming in. If he doesn't make it before it hits, we will need to get inside," he called out as he noticed the dust cloud building up from the south. Wouldn't be long. Fortunately, only a minute after that he heard wheels. He knew the sound of every engine in the desert, which is why he relaxed a thought in Colby, Connor's ride. He settled in, signaling the girl with a thumbs up, which he saw she returned, poking up from the roof. Damn, she was hard to see. Connor's ride pulled up, and Scorpion had to wince. The Raffin symbols and alterations covered the older Aldecados images. You could barely see them. The younger man that slipped out was just a teenager. Barely 18 really. Scorpion sighed. Connor. Driss. Good to see you, you old Scorpion. He offered with a smile that didn't quite meet his eyes. You got it? Scorpion asked, looking at the little trailer that Connor was pulling. Course, he said, popping the hatch and showing off the Prime Brennan Apollo. A motorcycle that Driss had been trying to get a hold of for a while. He always wanted a bike. All right. He pulled out the shard from his pocket. Letters, pictures, videos, everything. Your mom forced me to tell you this. Make sure you take care of yourself. Driss added as he handed over the shard. Yeah. She would say that. Connor added, sounding quiet as his shoulders slumped. Getting expelled from the family never came easy. Sometimes it was a relief to the family. Sometimes kids did stupid shit. Thanks, Driss. All right. Give me the eddies and this thing is yours. Connor added quickly. I want to get out of here before anyone notices. You threw off my schedule. We were supposed to meet up yesterday. Sorry, I had to run to Night City. Wanted to. It doesn't matter. He shrugged. His eyes shifted to blue as he transferred the eddies. Cool, Connor said with a sigh of relief as they both hurried over to the trailer, pulling it off Connor's pickup and wheeling it over to Scorpion's Gecko. The storm was getting close. Might have to camp out. Driss offered, seeing that the storm was getting close. Nah. I need to hurry back. Hopefully no one will even notice I was gone. You don't. Well, you kinda know, but you don't really know what the Raffine are. You hear that? Connor offered, turning as his face went white. Engines, Scorpion agreed. Looking concerned himself. That's the same direction you came from. I recognized that engine. Fuck. They followed me, Connor said, suddenly rushing to his ride. Get out of here. I was never here, he yelled out quickly as he jumped into his truck and took off. Fuck. Driss cursed. He was still holding the trailer, not even finished attaching it to his Gecko. But suddenly another pair of hands were there. Leave it. We need to go. 5 vehicles. The girl said as she appeared beside him. Her voice was completely calm, as if talking about the weather. Pushing the trailer hitch off the Gecko and leaving them free to run. Damn it, you're right. He growled, dropping it and rushing to the driver's seat. He slipped in, seeing the girl pushing the passenger seat forward and was maneuvering her big-ass machine gun. I guess it was a good thing you brought that after all. We'll see, she said calmly, as if everything that was happening didn't concern her in the slightest. They peeled out. Scorpion flooring it to get out of here. But it was too late. By the time they heard the vehicles, they were too close. They see us, she said as she was looking out the back window. Yeah. Hold on. I'm aiming for the storm. Hopefully we can lose them in the dust. He called out, swerving off the road, heading towards the wall of dust coming closer and closer. She didn't say anything after that, and Scorpion focused on driving. Ramping off dunes, dodging dips, he used every ounce of skill he had to try and lose them. But the Raffine were just as good. They were just as used to the desert as he was. They even had 2 bikes with them. The sound of their engines growing closer and closer. I'm rolling down the window, she said suddenly, and he looked over as she poked her head out, and suddenly her SMG went off. A few moments later he could hear the sound of one of the bikes crashing into a wreck. She jerked back into the vehicle as he heard bullets start arcing up the back of his car. Damn it, they are shooting at my baby. They are shooting at us too, she muttered flatly before peeking out again, and another rapid-fire exchange. The second motorcycle peeled off to Scorpion's relief, but suddenly he jerked. His Gecko started dragging through the sand instead of skimming over it. They shot your tire, she said flatly as she slipped back into the back seat. Her SMG dropped onto the floor as she grabbed the HMG in the back. It took her a moment as she looked around, trying to figure out the best way to do it, but then she grabbed a seatbelt. A few moments she had it wrapped around her right arm, as she held the HMG on her left. Then she opened the passenger door. The wind nearly slammed it shut, but she pushed it back open with the butt of the machine gun. She damn near stepped out of the car while he was going through dunes, and Scorpion was sure this merc was insane, but she sidled out carrying the HMG. And then she started firing. He winced. The sound was thunderous, and he could see the way she was resting the guns back against his passenger door. He could see the bolts holding the door together strain as she allowed it to handle some of the recoil. Damn it. But a moment later in his rear-view mirror he saw one of the Raffen trucks, with its entire front covered in bullet holes, slide sideways and start crashing. She kept firing. Damn. He was gonna have to thank Wakako for introducing him to the only merc in the city that walked around with an HMG, wasn't he? Unfortunately his luck didn't hold out. His tire must have finally finished shredding itself apart as his gecko bucked at just the wrong time. Instead of sliding over dune he smashed into it. The loss of the tire, the fact he was gunning it to try and escape. Too late. The gecko flipped. He lost track of everything as the car started rolling. Eventually everything stopped. He was dizzy and forced to blink the growing dust out of his eyes as he looked around. He was alone in the car. Girl and her HMG were gone. He reached down, up, and slowly popped his seatbelt off, grunting as he fell onto the roof of his baby. He winced at the glass that was coating his landing pad. He reached down to pull his gun as he tried the door. It was jammed. With a grunt he slipped out of windshield, forcing himself to move, because he knew what came next. Unfortunately by the time he crawled out of the car there was already a shotgun pressed against the back of his head. He dropped his pistol. He knew this was over. His gun was slipped from the sand and he was forced to roll over, wincing as he was pretty sure one of his ribs were broken. He looked up into the gas mask and goggles of someone he didn't want to see. "How's it going, Frank?" Well. Look who I finally caught. Scorpion, you son of a bitch. I'm going to enjoy bartering you back to your family. Get him up." Frank ordered, and Scorpion sighed as his arms were grabbed and he was hauled up. Suddenly shots rang out. Bullets started flying and the Raffen moved as one, grabbing weapons and firing into the dust. It took them a moment to find their shooter. The girl. She was on her belly, face covered in blood, a pistol in one hand as she looked like she had crawled over to start firing. He tried to call out, to tell the Raffen to leave her alone, but it wasn't going to happen. A few rounds shot back at her, but eventually they all heard it, even over the sound of the storm kicking up. Her gun clicked as it was out of ammo. Immediately one of the Raffen charged, as he watched her struggle to reload. Seeing the man approaching, she hefted herself up on her knees as she rose to meet him. The man going to knock her out found a knife instead as she whipped it free and stabbed him in the leg. His scream was loud, and it cut off a few moments later as she seemed to crawl over, stabbing as she went, and then sliced his throat. She was grabbing the Raffen's rifle when a shot rang out. A small cloud of blood burst from her back as she fell backwards, rolling into the sand and down the dune. Scorpion looked away. Frank had grabbed his own rifle and taken a shot, blowing a hole through her chest. "Get him up. I've lost enough people over this shit." Frank grunted, sounding not at all pleased with the situation. "Sorry kid," Scorpion whispered. All he could do for her. He now had his own problems.